Hello, I'm Sarah. This is Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here with my week of reading wrap up where I talk about the books that I read, what I'm currently reading, and potentially could read next week. I had such a good reading week. I didn't read a ton, but I have two five-star reads this week. And if you had told me that that was going to happen, I would have told you you were crazy. 5 stars for me, as I've mentioned before, are unicorns. They are books that I will return to because they have so much still there left uncovered. I feel like while I had a completely fulfilling experience the first time, I know it'll be more when I go back and return to it. So for me, that's what a 5-star is. 4-star means it's a very good book. 5-star is I can't wait to revisit. So let's jump in, shall we? And I'll tell you all about my first 5-star read. I'm doing this with a group of people. This is the part of the Toni Morrison Author Spotlight series that I'm hosting with some amazing people across the globe. This is the second that we're reading. This is Sula. And this is the Vintage International edition. And what I like about these editions is there's a foreword by Toni Morrison herself. And I found that that is so helpful in grounding you on the material. And she talks about the process. She talks about what she's trying to achieve. She's very forthright in how she talks about her books. I find it to be incredibly helpful. This is a short book. This is a novella size. It's 174 pages in this edition. But man, does she pack a punch here. I would say if you, like me, are interested in women characters and women friendships specifically, oh, this is one of the best. This is fantastic. It's just fantastic. So let me set the stage. We are reading about this town. It's in Ohio. We're visiting this specific kind of two families from the 1920s to the 1940s. It's a town in Ohio called Medallion, but the Black community is called the Bottoms. So the Bottoms, you would expect to be kind of, maybe if there's a valley, it's like low in the valley. But that's where all the white people live because the land's more fertile. So the Bottoms is actually higher up on the hill. In the Bottoms, we meet some families. We meet the family of Nell Peace. Nell is kind of a good girl who's raised in a very orderly house. She has a very controlling mother, very proper. And she chafes against that and wants to try more, be more, but does not know how to do it. And then we've got Sula. And Sula is like just in love with Nell's family, loves to be in Nell's house because she's desperate for order because she has none of it in her life. She comes from a family that is broken, that is dysfunctional, but doing their best. Her grandmother, Eva, kind of rules the roost and is this almost mythical character who lives in her room, doesn't really leave her room, kind of like the aunt in Proust, who observes everything from her perch in her room. And Eva has lost one or both legs in an accident. Very mysterious accident. No one knows how it happened, but because of that, she receives money every single month. And she's built this house that's kind of add-on upon add-on upon add-on, and it's become a de facto boarding house. A lot of people live there. She's a kind of quasi-adopted some people, and people who live there include her daughter, Hannah, and her granddaughter, Sula. We only know about Sula as reflected and refracted from other people's experiences of her. But so much of this book, what you think may not be exactly the context or the full truth. Toni Morrison is so adept and so skilled at giving you something and then giving you something later that has you thinking a little bit differently about the previous information that you had. She's a writer with great command of language, a great craft, skill at building the storyline, with a gift for complexity, and she will trickle out information. And what ends up happening is that you have to kind of work to form the picture yourself of what's happening with these characters. And you can't come into her novels with simplistic binary thinking. Because so in this one, she's playing with the idea of good and bad. She's taking us through a lens of survival and trauma and motherhood, which is basically something that she talked about in her last and explored in her last book, The Bluest Eye. And also looking at generational impacts of the type of living that they've had to do as Black members of a racist society. What I loved so much about this is the utter rejection of so much that is done by Ava, by Hannah, and then also by Sula. And the ways that they define what they're going to live for in their own lives. But you also recognize that Sula has freedom to make the kind of choices she wants because of the money that Ava has been able to bring into the family because of her accident. So there's a freedom that's available to her that is not available to Nell. Tremendous book. Absolutely tremendous. Language, literature. If you can, this is one that's ripe for a buddy read. As so far, all of Morrison's books have been really ripe for buddy reads. So if you've wanted to do one with somebody, I would advise just putting it out there on social media that you want to read this with someone and see who takes you up on the offer. Because multiple eyes on the same text is incredibly helpful as you're reading things with so much, things like this, with so many layers, so much nuance, so much symbolism and interpretation. So yeah, second one, slam dunk. Can't wait to read more, which I'm already in the middle of the next one. Then I mentioned last time that I could not stop binging on this series. And the library gods have granted me the next one in the series. So this is the Cesare Aldo series by D.V. Bishop. This one is called Ritual of Fire. So this is a historical mystery series set in Florence during the time of the Medicis. And in this episode of the series, we have Cesare Aldo, who has been, in essence, pushed out of the Otto, which is kind of like the police department that they have. And he is now kind of in the Tuscan countryside and working there as kind of security, as an investigator, kind of doing the same thing, just not inside the city of Florence. And that is because he had a fight. He had a disagreement on principles with his young kind of second in command, Inspector Strozzi. And Strozzi is a very principled young man. He is a young father, newly married, and he just has a view and a principled approach to what he thinks is right and wrong. Whereas Aldo and some other people have either had harder lives where ambiguity and morality is contextual, and or they're just older and have gone through it and seen enough to be able to recognize that not everything can be so literal and black and white. Well, he and Strozzi get into it, and Strozzi says, basically knows something about Cesare Aldo and says, we can't work together. I can't work with you. You go or I go. So Aldo said, I'll go. And then he took this post. So now we have what used to be like this fantastic working team now are separated, and something starts happening in Florence to the wealthy merchants. It starts with some messages that are written out and nailed up on doors across Florence that basically say that there's going to be revenge for the death of a monk 40 years earlier. This monk was a Puritan, heretical, and he was hanged and then burnt on the stake after he died. Well, all of a sudden there's a body that is killed in the exact same way, and he was a very wealthy merchant. And what starts to unravel is that there is a plot against 5 wealthy merchants. So this has both of them trying to solve what they think are independent incidences that are actually connected in their 2 locations. This series is so good. It's propulsive. It's interesting. There's always elements of historical truths in there that are then kind of extrapolated and put into this mystery. I enjoy it so much, and now I can't wait for the next book 4. Obviously, they're going to keep continuing it, but it's fantastic. If you like historical mysteries as much as I do, you might want to check out D.V. Bishop's series. Okay, and then I also picked up from NetGalley. This is the second of a series that I really liked the first one. The first one was Lost in Paris. This is The Clock Struck Murder, and this is the second in Lost in Paris series by Betty Webb. We open with our main character. Our main character is really interesting. Her name is Zoe Barlow, and she is an American who has been sent by her family in disgrace to Paris. They got her out of the way. They owned a plantation in the South, and she has been, in essence, excommunicated from the family or bought off and kind of sent away because she fell in love with a Black man and jumped the broom, had an unofficial marriage since weddings between Black and white people in the South at that time were illegal, and had a child, which she believed was in wedlock because they jumped the broom, which is a traditional ceremony, a marriage ceremony done in the Black community at the time. The child was taken from her, and she was rushed onto a boat, rushed onto a boat, and ended up waking up in a ship headed for Paris, and then given a stipend as long as she never returns to the United States. So she has been she's convinced that her child is still alive, and she's used some of her money to hire Pinkertons to find her daughter for her. And they keep running up against a lot of difficulty and roadblocks and trails that just end in a dead end. While all that's going on in her personal life, one day she's on the hunt at the flea market for a clock because she has these famous parties. She's an artist. She has famous parties once a week where people come and play poker, and she feeds everyone. And it's a way for her to sometimes make a little bit of money, which she sometimes needs, but also to feed the starving artist community that she's gathered around her. And she's somebody who's always giving, always trying to help. So at one of her events, a very wealthy friend of hers actually knocks over and breaks her clock. So she goes out looking for a new one at the flea market. She buys one that she thinks is really funny and cheeky, and they go to wrap it because she didn't have anything to carry it. They go to wrap it, and they're wrapping it in some canvas. And that canvas she recognizes is an actual Chagall painting. Now, she is friends with Chagall, of course she is, because of the artist community. And she knows for a fact that Chagall had been in Paris, had done many paintings, had left them in his studio, locked it tightly, as he went back to Russia to marry his fiancée. While he was in Russia, the revolution started, and he got trapped there with his now wife. And in the interim between arriving back in Paris, his studio was broken into. A friend liberated them all because he thought he was dead. And so he's came back to Paris and is absolutely heartbroken to find all of his work gone. So she knows this story. She sees this and thinks, oh, how does this person have this? And thinks that maybe she can find out more. So being who she is, she goes on a quest to find out where their warehouse is. She tries to talk to them, tries to get more information, but they don't recognize this as being a Chagall. They just think it's like a kid's drawing. She comes back later to do some snooping at the storage space, only to find one of the sisters has actually been murdered. And this is as she finds a few of the paintings just removed from the frames, just the canvases, including one that was used as a rabbit hutch roof. So she removes all of that, and it was after she had done that and kind of liberated these stolen paintings that she came around the corner and saw the woman dead. So she gets wrapped up into that investigation, much to the chagrin of her quasi-boyfriend, a man she's sleeping with, who is a police inspector. Now, one part of the story, I like all of that. That's all really fun, really interesting. There's one part of the story that I really don't like. And luckily she's wrapped it up in this one, so it won't continue, fingers crossed. And that storyline is that, she started an affair with this man, but she knows that Henri has a wife. It just so happens his wife has been in a coma. She had an accident and she hasn't recovered. And he's deeply in love with her. He's waiting for her to recover, kind of against all hope. But there's a room and he takes incredible care of her. She has somebody that looks after her. And Zoe feels so much for this woman and is so compassionate for her situation that she goes to read to her and spends an hour every week just reading to her and just trying to relieve the other woman for a little bit of time, and also to support Henri. So that's lovely, right? But the thing I don't like is there's an inner dialogue that we hear from the woman who's in the coma, and a ridiculous, in my humble opinion, storyline there where she has an imaginary friend that she's talking to in her head as she's regaining her strength and kind of upset at the fact that she has been usurped, because she's aware of what's happening around. She just can't communicate. So, as I said, I'm glad that storyline is ending and stopping. There's a reason for that. I will not spoil it. But there's a continuation of a previous storyline that I'm excited to see where it goes. So yeah, that was enough that I maybe wouldn't have continued. But knowing that that's going to end and we're going to get a different storyline starting up, I'm excited. But this was from NetGalley, so I want to thank the publisher for giving me access. I'll put below when it's coming out in case you are so inclined to read it. But yeah, it's set in Paris. It's set in the 1920s with artists and all of that. So another historical mystery that kind of combines all of the things that I love together. So hard to go wrong with that, right? So it hasn't even been, I think, a full month since I read this author's first novel. The author is Isabella Hammad, and this was The Parisian that I talked about. I talked about how this was very, very well done. But it kind of had a little bit of that first writer's first book problem where too much is kind of stuffed in. But that I was excited by her writing and really curious to see where she was going to go next. Well, one of you lovely people said that Enter Ghost had just been released and it was getting a lot of acclaim. So when I saw it on my library in audiobook form, I thought, well, let me try it and see. First, I have to tell you the narration is exquisite. It was done by Nadia Albina, and she did a fantastic job at narration. sublime. This is a modern day story, unlike her previous book was a historical fiction. This is set in present day. And we have a woman, Sonia, who is going back to Palestine. This is her ancestral home. She has family that still live there, but she has been living in London for most of her life. She comes back to Palestine because of an emotional roller coaster that she's going through. She's an actor, and she just had an affair with a man that didn't really turn out well, and she's kind of nursing some embarrassment and a little bit of a broken heart, and just wants to connect. She's feeling displaced, and displacement just rings through the entire book. She has not been back to Palestine to visit since the Second Intifada, and she's coming with she's kind of a foil and a stand-in for Westerners who don't know a lot about Palestinian daily life, either in the West Bank or in Gaza. She has a passport that allows her to travel with more ease than other people, including her sister, even though her sister does work at a university in Israel. And so she, I think in Tel Aviv, so she actually travels there and is able to go across checkpoints fairly-ish easily. While she's there, she's reconnecting with her sister, and they have a difficult relationship. Her sister has stayed in Palestine and has kind of shielded Sonia from a lot of the realities of life there, of what's happened to family members, what's happened to community. And so Sonia is trying to find a connection and dealing with a lot of ghosts of her recollections and memories, ghosts of stories that she was told, and how she interpreted it as a younger person, and ghosts of people that she's known before and who maybe are different now, are passed away, have died, have left, and also the ghosts of the places that she's used to. So an example would be her grandparents have passed away recently, and their home has been sold, and she's very, very upset by this. Very upset that she didn't get a chance to buy it. It was given to other members of the family, and they made a decision to sell it. She's already a little discombobulated, but she's also disjointed and not feeling connected. And there's all these assumptions placed on her because of the fact that she lives in London and she's an actress. So there is just a lot going on with her as she's navigating the family relationships and friend relationships. And as this is happening, her sister's friend, Mariam, is a director, and she comes for a visit with the goal of trying to get Sonia to support her and help her. She wants to put on Hamlet, the play, in Arabic. But she needs someone to come and to read for a part, at least just in the rehearsals. That's the promise. Just help me in rehearsals so that we can get the rehearsals going. I think I have some people who can play the parts. So she's originally doing Gertrude and also Ophelia in Hamlet. And Mariam is a very interesting character, a little naive, very headstrong, very focused and clear of what she wants, a little bossy, as you can imagine. And she takes Sonia with her, and Sonia will stay at her house, and they start this play. And the play has just the being in with the actors and hearing them approach the play, how they're thinking about it as Palestinians, what they understand versus don't understand, what's relevant and what isn't relevant to their experience now, was fascinating. This book, although it did have a lot, it felt like it progressed wonderfully. And we have a really difficult character in Sonia. She is not easy. She's not, she's uncomfortable and not comforting. She's kind of sits outside and watches, and she's kind of the younger sister. She's kind of a couple steps behind what's happening and not always open to people, possibilities, ideas, which I think is a great way for us to explore this material and what's going on. I think it was powerful. I think it's a phenomenal accompaniment to minor detail, which was slim, tiny. This takes the same type of look at the day-to-day quotidian type of experience of the Palestinians as they're going through their lives, and really reflects that and really shows what's going on in the lives of these characters. Fantastic. I'm definitely going to reread it. The audio, as I mentioned, was sublime. I want to go back and get a copy and read it myself in written form. So highly surprised and delighted that her second novel was so successful. All right, so then let me tell you what I'm currently reading. I was hoping I'd get a chance to review Whale. This is Whale by Myeong-Kwan, and it was translated from Korean by Chi-Young Kim. But we had to cancel my In Real Life book club, so we didn't have a chance to talk about this yet. So I will get back to you about this one. Then I'm doing a buddy read with Hannah of Hannah's Books, and we are reading this Willa Cather together. This is A Lost Lady, and we just had our first check-in this morning. Can't wait to see what she said. She left one, I left one. Now I can't wait to get back and see where we're going with this check-in. Then continuation of the Toni Morrison Author Spotlight series. We're moving on to Song of Solomon. Today is also check-in day for this, so tons of rich conversation about this one. Stay tuned for that. And then I have an audio that I have to pick, and I don't have a digital book to read, so I will be looking for something there. And ideally, I'll probably go back to my NetGalley and see what I need to read, because I'm woefully behind on all of those that I've been gifted. So that's it for me for now. I would love to know, have you read any of these and what were your thoughts? Yeah, I hope you had a great reading week yourself, and I look forward to talking to you next week. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.